Scott Rudin and I drove up to the Neverland Ranch, and there's no Michael Jackson. There's just a Neverland Ranch. So I find the estate manager to get the keys to his amusement park.
Amazing.
Well, the estate manager kept saying, "Do you want to pet the llama?" And I would say, "Pet the llama?" And then Rudin finally said, "Schmuck, llama. He wants to know if you want to pet the llama."
Somebody gonna cue me, or do I cue myself?
Cue yourself.
Okay. Hey guys, we're back with another episode of Let's Talk Off Camera, so let's get talking. Guys, I don't want to brag, but today we have Barry Sonnenfeld joining us. Ever hear of him, Jan?
I think I have, actually.
This guy could actually make our careers. We could get discovered
He's
today.
big time.
Be young starlets in the making.
I'm telling you, I'm going to ask him, do you see something in us that you would cast in something? This is a guy, let me tell you something. He has had a blockbuster career as a filmmaker with credits like the Addams Family films, the Men in Black trilogy, Get Shorty, Pushing Daisies, Schmigadoon. In his latest book, Best Possible Place, Worst Possible Time, he shares some dishy, incredible, behind-the-scenes stories of working with Hollywood's biggest actors, producers, and studio execs. Will he ever be able to work with any of these people again? We will find out. I've got to tell you, I didn't think I could. His first book, Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother, is, in my humble opinion, a masterclass in how to write a book.
It was so funny, that book, because I had him as a guest when he was on our talk show for that book. And that book made me laugh so much.
Even when he talks about brutal, horrible things, you are still laughing.
Crying.
And I find the same with this book, as technical as it is, because there's a lot of I feel like this book is a must read for film students.
I actually think that this book is should be for anyone just going in this industry. It's
Yes.
such a lesson for how to navigate this.
Yes.
All right, let's get to Barry.
Barry.
Okay, let's get Barry on the... Barry!
Oh, hi, Kel. And I hear Albert in the background.
You hear Albert and Jan Chalet.
Hi, Barry.
Your fan club.
Come over here and say hi to
Casting
Barry.
the next movie.
Now, listen. Jan produced you when you had Barry Sonnenfeld Call Your Mother.
Yep.
She's producing you for your latest gorgeous, brilliant novel, in which I think should be a trilogy of books. I think there needs to be 3. But Jan was wondering,
If I can have a cameo.
does Jan have star quality? Do you see something in her that you would cast as something in one of your pieces?
Oh, yes. But you know what? It's all about talking fast. Can you talk fast?
Can you talk fast?
I can talk very fast.
She's a fast talker. Yes,
talk
she's
so
a fast talker. She knows her way around a fast conversation. Is that fair to say, Jan?
Completely accurate.
Yes, completely accurate. So before we continue, I want to give our listeners, because this is like old school radio, I want to give our listeners an idea of where you are right now. I see a room. It's wood paneled. Is that overhead lighting? Is that a skylight? Where are you?
I am in my office in British Columbia on our 40-acre farm, because you can only imagine, Kelly, how comfortable I am around, chickens and vegetables and bees.
When I think giant bulbs of garlic and beekeeping, I think of you immediately.
Yeah, well, one of us does. By the way, I just can't compliment you enough about your Bob Iger interview. And
thank you.
Something he said at the end makes me really understand why he is the greatest studio executive. I mean, Disney is more than just a studio, but when you asked him what he fears, and he said he feared nothing.
Yes, right. But that's a lie. I feel like that was a lie.
It doesn't matter.
Yes. Yeah.
But it
is a good answer,
it's
though,
a great
right?
answer, because also it's what makes most studio executives bad. is their fear.
And their indecision. And he talked about that, like how being decisive is such an important quality as part of being, I always say that studio executives, and you really pinpoint this in your book, but studio executives wait for one voice to weigh in, and then they all share miraculously the same exact opinion. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's really quite remarkable to watch a group of such high-paid, established individuals line up like sheep behind one another.
It's interesting because you were never at our house in the Hamptons, but we had like the best screening room on the East Coast, and we had 35 millimeter projection. And I remember showing the Coen brothers movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And Spielberg was in the room. And as soon as it got done, the first person who spoke was Spielberg, so that he made sure that no one else was embarrassed by saying a different opinion than the one he gave. So he came up right, but we all disagreed with what he said. So there was that.
But you didn't disagree in front of him. You disagreed after.
Oh no, you know me,
fact?
Kel.
Well, no, I know you, because what's weird is like we'll fall in love with a film. I've been in Barry's screening room, not in the Hamptons, but in Telluride, Colorado, and I'll see the most beautiful film or a film that I loved, a film that I truly enjoyed, and I'll say I really loved it, and Barry goes, I hated it.
Or I could give you the silent schmuck by saying, really?
Really? That's what's so funny, Barry. I heard you read the silent schmuck to me, even though I wasn't listening to your book in audio version. I still heard you go, really?
That's right. Yes.
The silent schmuck. Yeah. Do you know Bob Iger well?
I don't know him well, but many years ago, right after, actually before Men in Black came out, but when it was finished, I made a 3-year deal with Disney, and I was in LA, and Bob was flying back to New York. So he said, I'll give you a ride on the jet. So it was me, Bob, and Willow Bay. It was just the three of us, and it's, a 5-hour flight. So I thought, why not amuse Bob and Willow by telling them the story about my 9 days of shooting 9 feature-length pornos and about getting...
It's my favorite. That's my favorite. Those are my favorite stories, by the way. You can tell us how you recalled them, and then tell us the Bob and Willow's reaction to that.
Well, it wasn't going well to begin with, but once I explained how I got covered in human excrement when a double insertion went horribly wrong, and a fountain of warm, loamy, liquefied fecal matter covered me, and then I threw up on the porno actors. I think at that point, I think that it really turned, and I think they were just really enjoying that story. Don't you think?
It is. It's this story, by the way, is in Barry's first book, Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother. Barry has followed it up with another blockbuster. This one is going to be another bestseller called Best Possible Place, Worst Possible Time.
For the longest time, the title of the book was called Idiots in Charge. And it was. And I thought, maybe not, because I'm not sure I delivered on that, and B, I didn't want it to seem like I was the idiot in charge. But, well, what that title refers to is one night on Men in Black 2, it's like 2 a.m. We're at the Disney Ranch, so it's always cold. No one realizes how cold LA is at night.
It's freezing. It's the coldest I've ever been in my life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's 2 a.m. I've got Will Smith on my left. On the right is Tommy's empty chair, Tommy Lee Jones. He shows up. We've got about 5 minutes before we shoot. And for no apparent reason, I say to Tommy, tell me why life is like a tampon. I didn't warn him about this. He didn't have weeks to get his best writers going. And Tommy, with no hesitation, says, Barry, life is like a tampon. You're always in the best possible place at the worst possible time.
Albert, I'll explain that to you.
Not familiar with that place.
Jen and I are very concerned about your sciatica. How is it lately? How is your narcissistic rage? Are you getting any of it out, or is it all just pent up in there?
No, I've had sciatica for 27 years, and, both Sweetie and I know it's not physical, it's psychosomatic, in that you have so much rage that you fear that if you express that rage, usually to like a business associate, or in my case, perhaps my wife, what will happen is you will so end that relationship, and you don't want to do that, but you don't want to express the anger. So your unconscious gives you so much pain in your sciatica that it informs every single second of your day, and therefore you don't express your rage. And Sweetie knows that all it will take is for me to yell at her, and then my sciatica will go away. But I love her and she loves me, so we move on with my sciatica, and it's still bad.
Can't you have like designated safe days where you get to yell at Sweetie to your heart's content, and then like you just get it all out? Like around here, now that the kids have left and we've got nothing but empty bedrooms, like now we have like designated scream rooms, not for each other, but where we can just go and scream and put our faces into a pillow and just let it all out.
That's genius. That is such genius. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and this 93-year-old woman who's a famous psychiatrist was sitting next to me, and I didn't say a word to her, and she said, "Walk me to the bathroom." I walk her to the bathroom. I wait for her. She comes out. She says, "Now sit." I sit. She says, "Every day you have to spend 5 minutes screaming alone in your basement somewhere. You are in so much pain." I hadn't said a word to her, so I just exuded
She just knew
this sciatic pain or something. So she knew. I do have enough. I've got 40 acres in a chicken coop, so I don't want to frighten
there's
the
no
chickens.
reason. You can literally go out and scream into the abyss, the wilderness. You can just go out there and have a designated. You should build like a screaming hut, like a yurt.
I think you're really onto something.
As a director, I'm the kind of actor that I love your directing style because I oftentimes, a director will ask me a question that I simply can't answer because I'm A, either not smart enough to answer it, or B, I don't understand acting enough to answer it. And so I feel like a line reading is an amazing thing. Like, just tell me exactly how you want me to say it, and I will say it exactly like that. Right. Do you encounter a lot of actors where you have to teach them to act or teach them the art of comedy?
Well, first of all, I was the cameraman on Misery with Kathy Bates, who won the Golden Globe and also the Academy Award. And Kathy was so self-confident as a person that when Rob Reiner would come to her and say, "Now remember, you've lived alone for this," she'd say, "Rob, just give me the line reading."
Yeah.
Because by getting the line reading, it's not going to take 6 more takes while you're trying to figure out how to show that I've been alone for a long time. And Kathy still made it her own, but she now knew, oh, Rob wanted me to be angrier, or Rob wanted me to hit this word. She still owned it, but it takes an actor with a lot of self-confidence to feel that they're not being told what to do. I mean, here's an example. I carry around a laminated picture of how I like my steak prepared.
We were talking about it today, by the way. We were talking about your steak today.
My favorite thing about you, Barry.
I still have it. My wallet's downstairs. It's still in the wallet. But here's the thing. When I go to a restaurant, I show the waitress or waiter that photo, and I always say, "What does your restaurant call this?" And then she'll say, "Oh, that's our medium rare plus," or "That's our medium." What I don't do is say, "Cook it like this." And the one time Sweetie and I were ever kicked out of a restaurant was when a waitress in Custer, South Dakota, or wherever we were, I think it's South Dakota, yeah, and I said, "What do you call this?" And she said, "Oh my God, I have to show it to the chef." And I said, "No, don't show it to the chef. It's like giving them a line reading, right?" She said,
Right,
"Oh
right.
no, he's got a
Oh.
great sense of humor." 40 minutes later, we still haven't even got our appetizer. And I said, "I wonder where our appetizer is." And my wife said, Sweetie says, "I wonder where our waitress is." At which point,
Right.
the maitre d' comes over and says, "We will not be serving you tonight. We have a chef, not a cook." Hands me back the laminated photo, which I cut out of remember the Sky Mall catalog?
Yes, Sky Mall
Yeah,
magazine.
right.
Yes, of course. I know the steak photo.
And did you know that photo was laminated by Josh Capon? You must know Josh from Lure.
Of
Yeah,
course, I
right.
know Josh
Yeah.
Capon. He laminated that for you?
Well, what happened was he saw it. I was at Lure, and what's funny is Lure Fish Bar makes a really good steak. So he saw me with that. He said, what the fuck is that?" I said, "Well, I was just asking your waiter why do you go." He set it on fire. They have little, the round little vault of candles.
Yeah,
He set it on
right.
fire. I said, "Wait, that's not fair. I didn't tell him to cook it that way. I just want to know what you call." And he knew I was right, so he took it. And in fact, I'll send you a photo of it because there's a burn mark on the
Around
photo.
it. Yeah.
He went back to the kitchen, laminated, gave it back to me, and apologized. So anyway, line readings are great. But here's the other thing. If actors talk fast enough, it prevents them from acting
Right.
in a bad way or seeing
Right.
the acting. They're obviously still acting. So I just hate the ponderousness of a lot of stuff I see especially on TV. Like if I cut to someone's close up reacting, I'm going to have the other off camera actor talking in the background. I hate silent reaction shots, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But that's
Yes.
just my metabolism kind of.
But I think it's very good. I think the way you shoot things tells a story, and you are very smart because I think you tapped into this way before everybody else. That the audience has a short attention span and they don't understand a lot. I mean, a lot of times I will watch a film and I am so lost because the director wants to be an artist and all the actors want to be artists, and I get very lost. My mind starts wandering. I'm putting together a grocery list. I'm getting my gym clothes for tomorrow's show together. And you move the story along and you tell us a visual story that aids the story. And I think those are very important things.
If you can lose a scene and it doesn't affect the story, that scene should not be in the movie. I've only done one movie that's over 90 minutes. In fact, when I was watching Titanic, which came out the same year Men in Black did, I realized that when the Titanic had its intermission, Men in Black was showing its end credits. That's how short my movies are and how long his are.
I know it's been said a million times, but why didn't she just move over on the door? Slide the fuck over and make room for the love of your life. Don't let him freeze to death in the water.
There is
Jesus.
There is that.
So Barry, you did all 3 Men in Black films.
Right.
Give me your number one crazy story from Men in Black.
Well, there are really so many, but here's one. We were getting ready to shoot Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, and Tommy does not suffer fools, I'll tell you that. And
Right.
although he loved Will and Will loved Tommy, they just thought each other was hilarious. So anyway, they have to be put in this device, which is the inside of their car that transforms into a hypercar, right? And they're going to go through the Midtown Tunnel upside down. So we have to bring a ladder over, on wheels, like it's like the old days when, you would get on airplanes from the tarmac, and we get them up there and we put them in the thing and we turn it upside down and we're ready to shoot, and they're hermetically sealed in this space, and their locks to prevent it from opening and falling. I say, roll camera. And I hear Will Smith go, "Oh, Jesus, so sorry. Tommy, so sorry. Baz, get the ladder." And you hear Tommy saying, "That's fine, Will. No worries, Will. Don't worry, Will." Anyway, I don't know what's gone on, right? So we race the ladder over. Yeah. Tommy reaches his leg out as the ladder is coming over, races down the stairs. And what happened was Will Smith is a farter. It's just some people are. And you really don't want to be inside a very small, hermetically sealed space with a Will Smith fart. You don't even want to be sitting next to him at the Disney Ranch.
When you release them from the space chamber, did the stench emit out? Like, were you able to smell it?
We evacuated the stage for about 3 hours, and
That's incredible.
no, he's lovely guy. Just he farts. Some do, some don't.
You think he's on like one of those high protein diets? They talk about the high protein diets.
Well, I don't think Will eats a lot of carbohydrates. I'll tell you that. I spent 4 or 5 days at his place in Calabasas, and we pretty much had boiled chicken and sliced tomatoes for 5 days.
Oh my gosh. What's his place in Calabasas like? Like, is it a mansion?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, 55,000 square feet. I made fun of him because he showed me his plans, and when he was building it, and I said, "What's that room?" And I still make fun of Will said, "Oh, that's my accolade room." And it was the room that led to the screening room. And he said, "Yeah, like for the MTV awards and, all the awards." But anyway, Will, I don't know if he ever went through with it because I made so much fun of him. He may have done away with the accolade room, but he had one for a while.
God, I really want to see the accolade room now. I'm dying to know what that looks like. You know what I mean?
Well, his house was huge, and I got in trouble once because this is on Men in Black 3. I introduced Will to Tuck's medicated comfort pads.
Which is a staple. If you've ever been to a Barry Sonnenfeld home, it is a staple in every powder room.
So
it really is.
It was a staple in their powder room too. So I'm leaving for a few days, and I'm going to come back, and I use the powder room because it's a long drive back from Calabasas to LA, and I see their Tuck's jar is inside a macrame sort of like holder. So I open up the Tuck's jar, I pull out my pen, I'm always with pens, and I write, "Dear Will, I'm your favorite fan." And then I close the jar, and I go home, I forget about it. I come back like 4 days later, and I said, "Hey, Will, what's going on?" He goes, "Baz, give me a little time. We've got a situation. Jada's really upset." And I hear him talking to his head of security. And I hear enough that I go, "Hey, Will, I think I can solve this." He goes, "Baz, just stay out of this. It's like serious. We don't need your joking around." And I go, "Okay, but I'm just curious. Is a security breach, does it involve a Tuck's medicated comfort pad?"
Stop. No.
And Will goes, "Damn, I should have known." Because Jada had gone to the powder room and seen this sort of pad that said, "Will, I'm your favorite fan," and thought someone had snuck into the house.
Broken into the house. Right, of course.
Of course.
It is LA after all. I mean, these things happen there all the time. And especially in a house that big, like people could be living there and theoretically you would not know.
Like ghosts and aliens.
Can you tell our listeners, can you explain to our listeners what about the Michael Bay encyclical?
Oh, sure.
Tell our listeners, can you explain to our listeners what about the Michael Bay encyclical?
Oh, sure. So this was on the first Men in Black again, and there was a scene near the end where Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones have to prevent Edgar Bug, who was played by Vincent D'Onofrio brilliantly, but he then turns into this giant creature, this like 25-foot bug. Tommy has just been eaten by Edgar Bug. But before Tommy gets eaten, he says, "Do not let him off this planet. Do not let Edgar off the planet." So the shot is Will's stunt double is going to be yanked by the CG leg, the computer graphics leg of Edgar across the stage. So we rehearse and we're getting ready, and Will comes up to me and says, "Hey, Baz, do you want me to do it? I can do that stunt." And I'm thinking, if Will does a stunt, then I can actually be on Will's face and not Randy's back, his stunt double's back. And then I can actually see Will be yanked across the room and the audience would realize it's really Will and it sounds great. So I said, yeah, sure. Right. So I think that's great. I go to my camper, which I really rarely do, because if you go to your camper, they change the shot. They don't work as fast. So
There's a lot of dicking
a lot
around
of
when the
dicking
director
around.
leaves the set. Yeah.
So but I know that it's going to go through lunch and I'm going to eat my tri-tip beef really quickly and then take a nap. It's always tri-tip on
Always tri-tip.
always tri-tip. So I'm in there in my camper. I eat the tri-tip. I'm going to take a nap and there's a knock on the door and it's Will and his first of several huge sort of bodyguard assistants. This was a guy named Tron. And Will and Tron,
Tron. Of course his name is
of
Tron.
course, is Tron. So
Right.
Tron, who was shaped very much like a manatee. He was huge, pear-shaped. He says, Baz, we're gonna do the stump. We're gonna invoke the Michael Bay encyclical. And they go, the Michael Bay encyclical. He goes, yeah. So Baz, on Bad Boys, there was a lot of people getting hurt, and Michael was rushing everyone. He was rushing every stunt. And people were getting hurt. So I invoked the Michael Bay encyclical. I had Tron stand next to Michael with a baseball bat, and I told Michael, whatever harm happens to any stand-in or stunt double or me, Michael was going to have the same thing inflicted on him by Tron. So he said, so we're invoking the Michael Bay encyclical. And I remember Tron saying, yeah, after Will invoked that rule, things were a lot safer. And Will said, not rule, encyclical. So it was very specific to
Right.
encyclical for some reason.
Encyclical. Yeah.
So luckily, we get ready to do the shot. And luckily, it's so cold on the set because we had a lot of grass and we were trying to keep the grass from dying that I was wearing a down jacket. So I thought that might help me as long as Will didn't get hurt in his head. Maybe the down
Right.
jacket would protect me if Tron hit me in the...
Absorb any shots
Tron
from
hits
Tron's
me.
baseball bat.
Although, let's face it, down is not a great absorber.
If I
No.
was there, I would have wrapped myself around you and I would have taken the shots from Tron.
You would
Because
have,
I am
Kel.
from New Jersey and I can handle it.
And by the way, they'd be too afraid to get anywhere near you.
Yeah, they'd be afraid. They'd be like, I can't hit a girl. I know a lot of these stories and I get so excited because I kind of know where it's going and I know how it's going to end. But a story I had never heard before is about working with Michael Jackson and going to Neverland Ranch. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yes, but I will say to start that Chloe just read my book, and Chloe's my 31-year-old daughter, and she said, I thought your book was really funny. I loved it. In spite of hearing each one of those stories 500 times, I still thought it was funny. I know. You collect stories and then you just keep repeating them until...
Yeah, but you are the best. I have to say, I know a lot of great storytellers. I've been very lucky in my life to know great storytellers. You are far and away the
please.
best storyteller. No doubt about it.
Well, so there are two really good Michael Jackson stories in the book. The first one was on Addams Family Values. Scott Rudin, who produced the two Addams Family movies, and I drove up to the Neverland Ranch, this is on Addams Family Values, to convince him to do an end credit song because on the first one, we had a great song by MC Hammer that was just fantastic. So if we drive up in separate cars because Scott doesn't want to drive with me, I don't want to drive with Scott. We get up there and there's no Michael Jackson. There's just a Neverland Ranch. And we go down to the screening room to wait to show him. We're going to show him the movie. And he's got a screening room with giant Oscar statues, bigger than the real ones on either side of the thing. He's got beds in separate rooms with windows and drapes that look out over the screening room. It's surreal.
That's a wild detail.
It was very creepy. And also, Scott keeps falling asleep, and he has sleep apnea, and it's driving me crazy. So I said, Scott, let's just sit outside because this is crazy. I don't know where Michael is and how long it's going to take. So I find the estate manager to get the keys to his amusement park. So I figured Scott and I will ride the carousel while we're waiting for Michael.
Amazing.
Oh, the estate manager kept saying, "Do you want to pet the llama?" And I would say, "Pet the llama?" And he would like make circling moves with his hand, and I didn't know what was going on, and it was really
Right.
frightening. And then Rudin finally said, "Schmuck, llama. He wants to know if you want to pet the llama." No, I don't want to pet the llama. But we did do the carousel for about an hour, up and down on the horses.
Carousel.
And then the estate manager comes with one of those rolling, room service carts with some domed, plates, because we're starving and Michael's still 5 hours away.
This is really why I want you to tell this story, because I know Albert was going to be like, "What did you eat?"
What did you eat when
so
you were
just
there?
wait.
Yes.
Here comes
Okay.
the estate manager.
What did they feed you?
2 chairs are brought to the table, a white tablecloth, these 2 silver domes glinting in the Paso Robles sun. And he stands there and we both sit, and he takes the napkins and he puts it on our laps, which I always find so rude. And I hate when waiters do that. Let me decide if I want.
I'm an adult. I'll do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
But
right.
He's a lovely guy, and then he lifts up the 2 domes. I had a bowl filled with peanut M&Ms, and Scott's bowl was Halloween mini Kit Kat and Snicker bars.
No. Stop.
Now let me tell you something.
Fun size.
Yeah, fun size. Let me tell you this. John Peters, who worked with Michael Jackson, told me that when Michael Jackson would be invited to dinner at like studio executives' houses, he would insist on bringing his own chef because he would only eat certain foods. So while everyone else is having like rare duck breast and seared scallops, Michael would have a hamburger and fries. That was his
Crazy.
private
My
chef.
God.
Yeah. And that private chef just went to In-N-Out Burger and grabbed fries and a burger.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Michael eventually shows up. He doesn't watch the movie. He says he'll write a song, and then suddenly he's in Japan fleeing for some legal reason. I don't know why, but there's never a song. Oh, by the way, on the first Men in Black, there's a scene where Will Smith has shown all these famous people that are aliens, like George Lucas
Right.
and Spielberg and Isaac
Exactly.
Mizrahi. But I wanted Michael Jackson to be on, and Michael said, "No, I don't see myself playing an alien," which was so not on topic.
Which is so wild. It's like, how can you be anything but?
But exactly. So Michael refused, but now it's Men in Black 2. Amy Pascal, who's the chairman and also runs Sony Music. Michael Jackson is going to have a new album coming out in 6 months. So she wants Michael in the movie. And I go, "No, Michael's damaged goods and I don't want him in the movie." And she says, "He's got to be in the movie. And he wants to play a Men in Black agent." I go, "Oh, Jesus, Amy." So I go, "Okay, all right." So the day comes and Michael will not come out of his camper, and we're lit and we're ready. And finally Michael comes out in red pajamas, which is not, which is wrong.
Which is not the Men in Black
No,
uniform.
you noticed. So, I talked to him and I go, "Michael, you got to put on the suit." He goes, "Do we have to do it today, Mr. Barry?"
Do you do a Michael Jackson impersonation? Can you do it at all?
No, I can't. No, I know. You do it, Kelly.
Do we have to do it today, Mr. Barry?
How
is that?
Way too much energy. Take it.
Oh. Do we have to do it today?
That's better.
Mr. Barry?
Yeah, that's the way. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So I go, "You know what? Let's go back to your trailer and get you in that suit." So I walk him back. And he goes, "I don't think I can do it today." So I go, "Okay, you don't have to do it today. But if you don't do it today, you're not in the movie. So you decide." I go back to the set. Amy has heard that I've fired Michael, and she says, "Fix this." So now I have to go back and say, "Come on, Michael, you can do it." So Michael comes back to the set, and he's really nervous, and he's a lovely guy. He's just really nervous and shy. Roll camera, roll sound, roll camera, hit the slate. And he says, "Zeke, cut. Hey, Michael, it's Zed. The guy's name is Zed." He goes, "Okay, roll camera. Zeke." This goes on time. And I go, you got to call him Zed. And he goes, "Mr. Barry, can't you change his name to Zeke?"
No.
No, we've done 2 movies. We're almost done with the second movie. The guy's name is Zed. How hard is it? I don't say this to him, but I'm thinking Zeke is
Zed.
no easier than Zed.
And Zed, it's practically the same word.
It's practically the same word.
Yes, right.
So a couple of hours later, we get done with the shot, and he didn't know that I was going to put him in the Antarctic with penguins surrounding him, but that's what we did. So Michael Jackson is actually in Men in Black as a Men in Black agent, he thinks.
Epic.
Yeah, a follow-up question? Do you have a follow-up question about this?
Did all you eat were the peanut M&Ms? That's it? There was no second course?
Albert has a specific way into everything.
Come on,
I know how he thinks, so
you didn't
I
finish
like to
that
give
part of
him
the
his-
story. I needed to know. Did you eat the peanut M&Ms? Were they good?
It was the only thing we had. We gulped them down. I think Rudin ate half of his Kit Kat bars with the paper on it. I don't know, but then we got out of there and stopped somewhere, probably In and Out.
Probably in and out.
Let's get to the Macy's commercial because I remember this commercial. I remember because I should have known you directed it because it is shot in only the way you can shoot something. It's gorgeous. It's big production. It tells a story. The shots are amazing. But tell our listeners about the process of getting this conglomerate of enormous celebrities and their egos into this commercial.
So Macy's used to have these commercials around Thanksgiving for Christmas where they had all their branded stars. Martha Stewart, Emerald Lagasse, Jessica Simpson. They were all in this commercial, and one person would lead to another person. Queen Latifah, who was late 5 hours the first day, 4 hours the second day. Broke the gate at the stages because she didn't want to wait for the gate to open up and told her driver, drive through the gate, yelling, VIP, VIP, but that's another story. Oh, Usher was there. In fact, Kelly, I beat him in leg wrestling.
I knew you did. Of course you did. By the way, I read it, but I knew it was coming. As soon as you said Usher was there, I was like, he beat him leg wrestling.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, I
Yep.
kept trying to get Martha to leg wrestle me, and Martha said, you know what, Barry? You'll lose because I know how to leg wrestle. Usher didn't know how to leg wrestle. That's why I beat him.
She said, you know what, Barry? You'll lose because I know how to leg wrestle.
By the way, I also told one night Martha and her mother the double insertion story over dinner in the Hamptons.
Did they love it?
Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. Loved it. All right.
Yes.
So everyone had to be there the full 2 days except Donald Trump, who was probably selling his suits or ties, who insisted he would only give us 20 minutes and had to come at this time. So we designed this massive shot, and it's a combination of a long dolly move with a techno crane move, and it goes across the entire lobby we created and ends up with a young little girl reaching up to touch Donald's hair, and Donald says, don't even think about it, or something like that. All right, funny. So we do the shot, and it's one continuous shot, works great, but I say, all right, well, let's set up for a close-up of Donald. They give me a lens, a viewfinder, I look through it, and Trump says, you're not shooting me from that side. That's my bad side. And I go, well, we have to shoot you from this side because it's established in the master. And he goes, figure out a camera angle where you can shoot me from my good side or I am leaving. And I go, okay. And I reach my hand out to shake his hand. I go, thanks, see ya.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, you are not going to get a close-up of me, Donald Trump? And I go, well, no, I can't because it's got to be from this side. You won't shoot this side. So thanks, you were great. And he turns to the, account executives and the agency, and they look at me and I go, no, we're fine. Let him go. So now I'm setting up for the next shot, which is like a 2-shot of Martha and Jessica Simpson. And Trump taps me on the shoulder and he says, okay, you can shoot me from the bad side. And I go, no, we've moved on, Donald.
Right.
But I think a funnier story is when Sweetie, Chloe, and I, who was 4 at the time, visited Trump in Mar-a-Lago. This is A couple of years after he had bought it, but he was in the middle of turning it into a club. And he says, let me show you around. And he takes us up to this bathroom, and he makes the butler who was there when Marjorie Post uh, owned it, and he says, you see all those tiles? Walt Disney himself painted every one of those tiles around the bathtub. Isn't that true? He says to the poor butler, and the butler goes, well, if not Walt Disney, I'm sure he supervised it. And Trump says, no, Walt Disney himself. And says, you can
Right.
stay here. I'm going to show them the grounds without you, because now the butler's in trouble. Yeah. So we're walking down, and he says, I'm going to show you the spa I'm building. So as we're walking there, he says, see those tennis courts? Yeah. Tennis Court Magazine says those are the greatest tennis courts in the world. And I go, wow.
In the world.
In the world. Wow. I say. And now we're continuing to walk to the spa. And he says, you see the grass we're walking on? You see this lawn? And I go, yeah. He says, Lawn Magazine says this is the greatest lawn in America. And as you know, America has the best lawns in the world. So I go,
Yeah.
goes without saying, Don. We get to the spa, and I swear this is true. And my wife, Sweetie, who cannot lie, will back me up on this. We're standing there, Chloe, me, and Sweetie. And Don says, see these spa doors? Spa Door Magazine, true story, says these are the greatest spa doors ever. And I say, the Spa Door Magazine? Donald says, yes, the Spa Door Magazine. And I go, wow, you wouldn't think the spot, at which point Sweetie is like kicking the back of my leg. Get the fuck out of here.
I want to pivot a little bit to Get Shorty.
Sure.
Because it's just such a classic. And I learned so much reading this book because I did not know any of the Get Shorty stories. So can you take us behind the scenes, what it was like, and who were the unusual or difficult personalities on that film? I want to pivot a little bit to Get Shorty because it's just such a classic. And I learned so much reading this book because I did not know any of the Get Shorty stories. So can you take us behind the scenes, what it was like, and who were the unusual or difficult personalities on that film?
There were so many. What's interesting is just because you have a bad experience making a movie, it doesn't mean it will be a bad movie. And sometimes you have one of the best experiences I ever had was working on a movie called For Love or Money that no one saw. And it was just fun. So this was not fun. Gene Hackman suffers no fools even more than Tommy. In fact,
Wow.
I would rather drive cross country with Tommy than have an In-N-Out burger with Gene.
Wow.
Although weirdly, I would take either one of them over Robin Williams. How crazy is that? But that's
Wow.
not what we're talking
Wow,
about.
right. Wow.
John Travolta played the lead, and he's a lovely guy. I've never worked
He
with
is,
any
yes.
actor who more loved being a movie star. Some actors love acting. Travolta loved being a movie star. Just loved
Wow.
it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And unfortunately, could never learn his lines. In fact, I heard that on Primary Colors, after me, he did Primary Colors with Little Mikey Nichols. And Little Mikey Nichols is a real director, and he had to
Yeah.
have cue cards also. So,
Right. Wow.
so it's the first day of Travolta and Hackman working together. John says to Gene, what do you do this weekend, Gene? And Gene says, in his adorable way, well, with 8 fucking pages of dialogue to learn, I didn't do anything but learn the fucking dialogue. And John says, well, that's a waste of a weekend. So I know it's going to be a
It's going to be a long day.
long day. I also direct from the camera. I don't direct from Video Village. I think that's a very lazy place to be. Video Village is where they set up a monitor and a bunch of chairs and people drink coffee and stuff. And they're usually either executives or other people that are willing to help you. And I don't want any.
Now they're all on their cell phones.
Now they're all on their cell phones during takes. Literally
Yeah.
during takes, there they are, checking emails and stuff. So
and then weighing in that they didn't like the
yeah,
shot.
right, having not seen it. So I direct from the camera because then I can immediately say to the actors, "Okay, great, let's just go a lot faster." So, so there I am, and I can see that Gene. It's a 2-shot because here's another thing: comedy plays in 2 shots. You get to see action, meaning someone saying the lines, and reaction, someone reacting to those lines. And maybe we'll talk later about When Harry Met Sally, the greatest 2-shot reaction shot scene ever. But anyway, so it's not working because John isn't coming in with his lines because he doesn't know them. Gene's getting more and more angry. The camera operator has to reload the film. Sweetie's over at Video Village. She's come in. It's our first day of shooting. I said, "How fantastic is Hackman?" And she goes, "I know, he's amazing." I come back, we're ready to shoot again. I say to Gene, "Hey, Gene, stand up one line earlier. I think it'll be funny if you stand up on this line." And roll sound, roll camera. Gene says, "Cut the fucking camera. You don't have a fucking clue what you're doing. You are the worst director I've ever worked with. You don't have a fucking clue. You'll ask your wife on what line I should stand up on." So I say to the first assistant director, "Find out when lunch is ready." Is lunch ready? The AD says, "Not for another 3 hours." I go, "Okay, everyone, let's break for lunch." And I say, "Hey, Gene, give me a minute." And Gene says, what the fuck do you want?" And I said, "I just want you to know, if for the next 12 weeks you need to yell at me every day, go ahead. It doesn't bother me. I think you need to yell at me, and don't worry about it. Let it out." And he goes, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And I go, "I know you're not mad at me. I know you didn't think my wife told me what line you should stand up on. You're just angry at John for not knowing his lines. You can't yell at John because you got to work with him and act with him for the next 12 weeks. But you got to let out your anger. So yell at me. I don't mind at all. Keep yelling. Go ahead." And Gene says, and this was horrifying, he says, "Okay, come on to my camper. We'll have lunch together." And it was really horrible. And he kept yelling at me for the next 12 weeks. He kept yelling at me. And then he came to the premiere, and he's never been to any premiere of his. He stays, watches a whole movie, and then loves it and says to me, "I got to talk to you." And I said, okay, Gene, now what?" And he says, "I just want you to know your movie is really good." And I go, "Oh, well, thanks, Gene." He goes, "But here's the thing. The entire time I was working with you, I didn't think you had a fucking clue." And I said, "Okay, thanks, Gene." But he loved the movie, so great.
Oh my God.
It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Really incredible.
Being a director is like being a parent. You have these different kids, and each kid needs a different way of you being a parent.
Yeah.
And in Gene's case, I needed to be the parent he could yell at. And some kids need love and support. Some kids want nothing from you.
Right. Who's the person that wants nothing from you?
Let's see. I would say someone who didn't want anything from me, but really needed it.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him every day for 20 weeks was Tommy Lee Jones, because Tommy had
Wow.
never been in a comedy. So Tommy thought he knew how to be in a comedy, which was to be funny. And you
Right.
never, ever, ever, ever want any actor to be funny. You want them to
It's a
be
kiss of
real.
death.
It's a kiss of
Right.
death. So Tommy Lee Jones, first day of shooting, he's talking to an alien who's talking in an alien language, and he's got flippers, on his shoulders and stuff. And Tommy Lee Jones, first day, first shot, actually second shot, Tommy says, "That's enough, Mikey. and he's speaking to an alien who's only been speaking in an alien language, so we know Tommy understands this alien language. Tommy says, "That's enough, Mikey. Put up your hands and all your flippers." Cut. Tommy, it's going to be funnier if "and all your flippers" isn't funny because you do this every day. This is just government issue,
Right.
right?
Standard.
Standard. Just say, "Put up your hand." I didn't say anything. I just said, "Let's just go again, government issue." And for 20 weeks, Tommy hated me. I would never let him be funny. His manager, Michael Black, called me and said, "You don't want Tommy to be funny. You only want Will Smith to be funny." I said, "Look at any comedy duo, Lucy and Ricky, Abbott and Costello, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. You need one funny guy and one straight guy, but they're both equally funny."
Yeah.
It's
Straight guy usually gets all the laughs.
gets the less because it's a reaction shot.
That's right.
Because it's
of
the
course.
audience's point of view, right? So
Yes.
Tommy sees a movie, and all these journalists who are so afraid of interviewing Tommy because he's just so mean. They say, "How did you learn how to be so funny?" And thank God Tommy says, "The secret to being funny is stand next to Will Smith and do whatever Barry Sonnenfeld tells you to."
Oh, wow.
That's nice. Nowadays, it would be, well, I learned how to be funny. Yale during the master's program. I took comedy very seriously. I studied the great comedian. Like, nobody has that level of self-awareness anymore.
And also self-confidence.
And self-confidence, right.
You have self-confidence, Kel.
I don't, though.
You do. I think you do.
I have enough confidence to be very honest and tell people. I mean, I remember I did a role on Riverdale, and I went up on set and I said my lines, and the director came in and he did some finagling with the lights, and I looked at him and I go, "Are there any notes?" And then before he spoke, I go, "Not that I'll be able to do this performance any differently, because I cannot. I don't. I just gave you every range I had."
That's all you want. That's all I want. It's good. Let's move on. We got
Right,
it.
let's move on. Great. So you mentioned When Harry Met Sally. Take us inside the greatest scene in movie history, Jan's favorite scene. She reenacts this scene with her husband at least 4 to 5 nights a week. Can you take us into the diner orgasm scene?
So we're at Kata's Deli, which is down, in the East Village. Well, it's sort of, we're in Kata's Deli, and it's really hot and it's sweaty, and Rob's wearing the pastrami guy's towel on his head because he's sweating so much. And he keeps saying to me, "What kind of idiot has his mother in the scene where he's directing someone to fake an orgasm," right? So it's a scene where Meg Ryan fakes an orgasm. And what's brilliant about the scene is it's about action and reaction. It's about reaction shots, because as hilarious as Meg Ryan is faking an orgasm, you cut to Billy doing nothing. You could have a dead person there, and the laugh goes from 80 dBs to 1,000 dBs just because he is the audience's point of view. So you always want the point of view always gets the laugh, which is why the two shot is always so funny. And in fact, Kathy Bates was so good in Misery, not a comedy, that Jimmy Caan could have been dead and was so not in it that people think he did a good job and all he was doing was lying there. But you cut to Kathy being really mean and you cut to Jimmy being asleep, and it still looks like he's super afraid. So it's always about the reaction shot.
It was also very interesting to hear that Jimmy Caan could not lie still, and that his entire job was to be bedridden for all of these, weeks and weeks on a movie set, and he couldn't sit still.
Rob and I were so fed up with him because, first of all, the wrong guy to put in a bed for 14 weeks, or 12 weeks. And he was so fidgety, and that we were so fed up with him. And this is a horrible thing, but in the shot, Jimmy has to crawl out of bed and then crawl to the door. And I'm going to dolly back with him as he's crawling to the door. And Jimmy says, "Hey, Ba, how far should I crawl?" And I I go, and I spit on the floor, which is horrible. And so normally you'd put a piece of tape
Right.
down, or some chalk, or I spit on the floor, and Rob Reiner says, "Crawl to the loogie, Jimmy." So even Rob, instead of looking at me like, "What kind of disrespect?"
What is wrong with you?
Crawl to the so to this day, Rob and I will still say, for no apparent reason, "Crawl to the loogie, Jimmy."
Let me ask you a question. Who do you think you'll hear from in a way that may not be positive in this book? Who do you anticipate hearing from?
I asked that very question at 4 a.m. to Sweetie last night when I still couldn't sleep because of this interview today, wondering what's going to happen.
Has this interview been easy for you or horrible?
Oh, it's been really easy for me because I'm talking to you.
Okay.
But it could be Will Smith. It could be Amy Pascal, the head of Sony. I did 4 movies with Amy Pascal. It could be Gene Hackman. I don't think will be a problem. He's 93, and I don't think he's going to read the book.
Right.
Walter Parks, the producer of the 3 Men in Blacks, surely will be a problem. Travolta may or may not be a problem, but I've also been lovely to some other people.
I don't want to give the entire book away to our listeners, but there was some classic Hollywood bullshit that affected Barry's career greatly, and I thought that you and Sweetie were both extraordinarily generous.
Well, can you imagine where I would be without Sweetie? I know where I'd be, actually. I'd be in Washington Heights living with my dead mother. Still a virgin. But yeah, I could have been meaner. But I also took out a lot of chapters. I probably already have enough for a third book. I took out 40% from my first book and probably 30% from this book. Hachette asked me to take out a chapter with little Kim because she's litigious and they didn't want to get sued. So I took that chapter out, which was really funny. And that's all I'll say because I don't want to get sued either.
Interesting. My editor took out 200 pages from my book and, we're saving it for book 2. But one of the chapters she took out of the book, I talk about when I met you and the first words you said to me. And I don't know if you remember the first words you said to me, but they were extraordinarily funny.
No.
You said, "I have a flashlight in my pocket that if I shine it in your eyes, I can make you vomit." And I thought it was the greatest opener conversation ever. And then how I met Sweetie is I heard Sweetie say, "Barry, don't show her that flashlight," from across the room at the Caston's house. It was the greatest. I was like, I got to know these people. I was like, these are my new people.
Yeah, that sounds so much like me.
Well, Barry, I've got to tell you, it has been a pleasure to talk to you about this book. I've loved everything about this hour. Don't forget to read Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother.
Great.
And then don't forget to read Best Possible Place, Worst Possible Time, Barry's second amazing book. It's just a delight to have you here, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
You too, Kel. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Okay, don't forget to listen, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts. Bye, everyone. Can't wait to talk off camera next week.
Barry, thank you. Let's Talk Off Camera with Kelly Ripa is a production of Melojo Productions with help from Goat Rodeo. Our theme song is Follow Me from APM Music. From Melojo, our team is Kelly Ripa, Mark Consuelos, Albert Bianchini, Jan Chalet, Devin Schneider, Michael Halpern, Jacob Small, Roz Therian, Seth Gronquist, and Julia Desch. From Goat Rodeo, our team is Kara Schillen, Megan Nadolski, Max Johnston, Isabel Kirby McGowan, and Rebecca Seidel. Additional sound design by Terrence Bernardo. This show is powered by Stitcher.